What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we're going to be talking about the wild ride that is Barbarian. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about the movie that has the internet buzzin', the world buzzin', Barbarian. It's another movie review, guys. Like, there's just been too much cool stuff coming out to not review movies. If you're new here, this is Nerd Squish, where we take everything spooky and we take everything nerdy and we squish it all together. So if you like horror, Halloween, and pop culture, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos from us in the future. We're gonna start off this video being relatively spoiler free, which is this is a tiptoe to not be spoiler about this movie, because the best way to watch this movie is to know absolutely nothing. We're gonna do a first half of this review that is spoiler free, okay? Just kind of talk about basic things, what I thought about it, and then in the back half, I'm gonna throw out some spoilers. So I will give you a warning when that time comes. But if you haven't seen the movie, first of all, you shouldn't be watching this at all. You should go watch it and then come back and we can discuss our thoughts on this movie. But I will give you a warning when the spoilers do come up. I didn't know much about going into this movie. I knew the title was Barbarian. I had seen a trailer, which is very vague, which is a rarity these days. Movies just, like, they show you the whole thing. They show you the whole thing in a trailer and you're like, well, that's cool. Like, why would I watch the whole movie? Because most likely it's just going to be a bunch of, like, boring parts filled in with what I've already seen in the trailer. But this was not the case. They definitely gave you just enough to reel you in, and then they dropped a bomb on you, which is beautiful, beautiful. Why don't more movies do this? So basically all I knew was, okay, it's a movie about an Airbnb gone wrong, essentially, right? You have this girl that arrives to her Airbnb and somebody's there already renting it at the same time that she's supposed to be renting it, and you're like, okay, what's going on, right? That's all I knew. That's all I knew. That's all you need to know. That's all you want to know. So right from the very beginning, I had a chest pain in this movie that did not go away until the end. I mean, it is a wild ride. That is the best way to describe this movie. This movie, I paid for the whole seat, but I only needed the edge. Didn't actually pay for it. Streamed it at home, so I digress. And in my opinion, this movie is the perfect kind of horror, the perfect kind of scary. There's no excessive gore or jump scares or like highly, shockingly disturbing content. You take this concept already, like maybe this is just me, but Airbnbs, hotels, anywhere where I'm renting to stay for a night, like I'm already kind of terrified because I'm going into this place that I know nothing about, into somebody else's home, essentially, where anything could have happened, could currently happen, things and people could be hiding in there. I assume that at all times, anytime I'm like staying somewhere, like there's just cameras set up and people are watching me. And that's just the risk I take to go on vacations. I mean, that's just, I don't know, is that just me? Let me know in the comments down below. Do y'all get scared when like you're staying in an Airbnb before this movie? Not after, because that's a trick question. And I will tell you that this movie is so scary that definitely think it's a great one to go see in the theaters. But on that same token, when this movie ended, my husband Matt was home, but he like went upstairs to go play like video games with his buddies, and I was just like downstairs by myself in the dark. And I was scared. I was scared in my own environment, and that just goes to show you how scary this movie really was. Okay, I know I said there's no like shocking, disturbing content. There is, but it's not like this like uncomfortable thing that they just dwell in. It's more or less kind of like hinted at or briefly shown. Like it's not this thing where like, you know, you have these uncomfortable scenes in movies that just like go on forever and you're just like sweating, when is it gonna end? It's not quite like that. And another thing that definitely helps make this movie more terrifying is the cinematography. I mean, some of these shots are super, super wide. Some of them are very close up and almost a little claustrophobic, and it really adds to the terror that you're feeling. I mean, they have some shots that, you know, it almost looks like you know, you can see the characters like arms and stuff that they're holding and you almost feel like you're playing like a video game. Then there's like the lighting, like there's a lot of very, very dark moments in this movie. So like you're almost like watching it like, you know, like this, you're like squinting, like I don't, what's happening? And that adds to the terror because you're like seeing things, but you're like, am I actually seeing things or is it just like really dark and I'm blind? You don't know. This is just good old-fashioned terror. Like I said, it does not rely on excessive gore and jump scares, which is a rarity. Most movies these days that people are like, this is the most terrifying movie of all time. People left the theaters and they're fainting and throwing up. And this doesn't rely on the things that those movies usually do. You know, a lot of movies get that because they're gory as hell. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are gory movies that I like, but I prefer something that doesn't because usually in horror, that means like they actually tried to scare you. They're not just doing like the easiest, you know, way to scare you. And another great thing about this movie is that you literally never really know where it's going. The movie starts and you're like, okay, girl in an Airbnb, there's a mix-up, somebody else is there, like, I know where this is going. You don't. You don't know where it's going. The only way that I can compare the feeling of the flip-flopping back and forth of this movie and not knowing where it's going is you're at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, you're on the boat ride, going through the tunnel, and the lights are all crazy, and he's just sitting there crazy like, there's no earthly way of knowing which way that we are going, because that's this movie. And literally when you think it can't get any more bizarre, more weird, more just out of nowhere. But wait, there's more. And then you're like, okay, yeah, that took a turn. And then but wait, there's more. And you're like, my God, I can't take this anymore. And then he just pops up again, but wait, there's more. This is a wild ride, y'all. Like, that's the best way to describe this movie. And I honestly don't really have a complaint. There's minor things that I will get into in the spoiler section of this video, but the movie's so good that those minor complaints like don't affect my thoughts on the movie. I thought this was something just completely different, original, and creative, and it really put a breath of fresh air into movies, horror movies especially. I mean, I feel like all movies can be very predictable, especially horror. Like, if you watch a lot of horror, like, you kind of know where things are going. No, not with this. Not with this. We are going to enter into the spoiler section of this video. So again, here's your warning. Turn back now. Don't look at this. Don't listen to this. Go watch the movie, because if not, it's going to ruin your experience. You have been warned. We're going to go through like a little overview of what's going on here, right? So we have this character, Tess, that is going to her Airbnb, and she gets there, it's dark, it's raining, you can't really see the neighborhood, and you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on. She gets to the Airbnb, and like, she can't get in the house, and she's like, okay, it's kind of weird. And then she gets back in her car, window light comes on, so she's like, okay, well, somebody's there, goes and rings the doorbell, there's a guy there that is also renting it at the same time that she's supposed to be there. So you're like, okay. And right off the gate, you assume you know what this movie's gonna be, because the guy like invites her in the house and he's like, let's figure this out. So you're like, okay, this girl's gonna go in here, he's basically gonna abduct her, and it's gonna be this like torture something movie. I don't know. The whole time you're watching it, you're going back and forth. Right out the gate, they want you to think that he's the bad guy. So in my brain, I was like, okay, if they want us to think he's the bad guy, he's not the bad guy. But maybe I was like, okay, well, maybe they don't want us to think that, but he really is. And then you get lost in the theories. Every piece of dialogue had me switching back and forth of whether I believed, okay, he's the bad guy, the killer, whatever, or he's not. I could not make up my mind until the final scene where you find out that he is in fact not, which, boy, was that a scene. When things start to ramp up in this movie, I mean, it goes. I mean, it... So what happens is Tess comes home. The whole reason Tess comes to town is she has an interview for this job. So she comes back home, Keith isn't there. Well, this girl, you know, She's got a nervous stomach, I guess, with that interview. She needs to go to the bathroom. There's no toilet paper. So she's looking all over the house for toilet paper. Finally, last place to look, the basement, which, who keeps toilet paper in the basement? I mean, I know it's an Airbnb, but come on. When she gets down into the basement, she gets locked down there. She doesn't have the key, she doesn't have her phone, I mean, she's stuck in there. She discovers a secret door that basically leads down to like a dirty room with a bed and a camera and a bucket, and it looks a little bloody, it looks a little creepy. Finally, Keith comes home and he's like, girl, chill, because she's losing her mind. He's like, look, let's just figure this out. I'm gonna go down and investigate, and you stay up here. And at that point, you're like, okay, he is the bad guy. He is the bad guy. He goes down there, you start to hear him screaming, help, help, help. And you're like, yeah, he's luring her down there. He's learning, he's the bad guy. And this character of Tess, played by Georgina Campbell, like, first of all, the actress did a phenomenal job. Like, I think everyone in this movie, like, there was no bad acting. Everyone did great. However, this character Tess, so stupid. And I get it. If there's not stupid decision making in a movie, we wouldn't have horror movies. We wouldn't. Because they'd be like 5 minutes long. They'd see something like creepy and they'd be like, no, I'm gonna go the other way, or I'm gonna call the cops, and then it would just be over. People have to make dumb decisions for horror movies to exist. Like, that's just a fact. First of all, this girl gets to this Airbnb and goes inside with a strange person. Now, I don't care if it's a man, I don't care if it's a woman. If this was me, and you got to an Airbnb, I'm not gonna go stay. First of all, I'm not even gonna walk through the door, much less spend the night with a random person I don't know, because you're gonna die. And then not only that, but now she's in this basement, going down into this tunnel, into the ground, to save this guy that she literally just met. Like, no. I would be hard pressed to even do that for somebody that I knew and loved, because, like, what am I gonna do? I know me. Like, I'm not tough. Like, they have a better chance of surviving if I escape and go get people, the cops, somebody to come back and figure this out, right? So this girl's just making stupid decision after stupid decision. Goes down there, you get this, like, scary moment, Keith crawling out, and you think, okay, he's just, like, he's goofing, right? And then this giant naked woman comes just running at him, and it is haunting. I mean, look, she's hanging out in all of her glory. She's deformed. Her yabos, let's call them yabos for YouTube's sake. Her yabos are flapping all over the place. I mean, it is a terrifying scene. And then she just grabs Keith and smashes his head until he's dead. Cut scene, and then we just jump into something else. What? Like, what? Bold. Friggin' bold. Like, I was like, how are we just gonna move on to, like, another story after this? I am shooketh to my core, and we're just gonna jump to something else. What a first act. So right away after that, like, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a fantastic movie. Then we jump into Justin Long's character, AJ, which it is so good to see Justin Long in horror movies again. I love Justin Long in anything he does. I don't care if he's doing horror or comedy. He's so talented and just so charismatic, like, you wanna watch him. But he plays this, like, LA Hollywood actor type that basically has allegations and has no money and realizes that he needs to, you know, handle some of his assets and stuff like that. And that's where it's revealed that he is the owner of this Airbnb. So he flies out to Detroit, where this Airbnb is, to kind of, like, I don't know, figure out what he's got to do. And when he gets there, he sees, like, okay, like, somebody's here. He's calling the Airbnb place, and they're like, oh, we don't have anybody, like, scheduled to be there. Like, what? And that's where I have questions. Like, who's in charge of, like, she rented this place through Airbnb. He rented it through something else. And then Justin Long, like, the management company, they don't know anything about it. So who's actually booking these appointments? That is something that's never really explained. Which is one of those things that kind of, like, takes me out for a second, but again, this movie's so good that I can forgive it. And right off the gate, he's making dumb decisions too. He sees a chair, you know, propping open the basement with a light on. and is so mad about people being in his house but doesn't think to go into the basement and check it out right away? Sir, when he finally does discover the basement, he's all excited. He's like, oh, I got more square footage. I can make more money off of this thing, which is kind of like this comical moment. That's when he encounters the Yabo beast, and all hell breaks loose. And we discover that Tess is actually still alive down there, and this deformed creature basically like treats them like her babies, gives them bottles with milk that have hair on the nipples that is disgusting, and wants them to drink it. You see that like she's watching this like educational video about breastfeeding, and you're like, what the heck is actually happening? There's no way of knowing which way we are going. What? And through all the chaos of what happens, Tess manages to escape, only to want to go back in to save AJ. Girl, the whole reason you were trapped down there with the Yabo beast in the first place is that you were trying to save somebody that you had just met. Did you not learn your lesson? Like, I am hard pressed to believe that this girl that just goes and rents Airbnbs by herself as an independent woman has survived this long in her life with the dumb decisions that she makes. So we eventually do get a little bit of flashback where we go back in time to, I don't know, 80s? Maybe. I don't really know what actual year we're supposed to be in. But you see Richard Brake, which I didn't even know he was going to be in this movie. So that was like exciting for a second. And you kind of see that he lives in this Airbnb back in the day. And you don't really see it, but basically they allude that he kidnaps women. Okay? And then you go back into the story. So it's still kind of like in the air, like what is actually happening here? Like, how is this all connecting? So while Justin Long's down there, he actually does see Richard Brake's character all old and decrepit, and he watches these videotapes with these women that he abducted and the things that he did to them. And then the character kills himself. Not AJ, but Richard Brake's character. And you're like, don't know which way we're going. So eventually both AJ and Tess do get out, and one of the squatters or homeless people that live in the neighborhood basically tell them, like, you know, come hang out with me, like that Yabo beast, that's not the thing that you should be most scared of. And you're like, kind of thinking to yourself, well, is it Richard Brake's character? Or does something else, like, is there more deep down there? But essentially, you learn that the women that he would take down there and abduct, they would have babies, and the babies would have babies with the babies, so it was this big abducted incestual thing, and that's how you got this freakish, deformed Yabo beast. Whew. It's heavy. We also learned that the Yabo beast comes out of the house at night. Sure enough, she comes out, she kills the hobo, rips his arm right off. And that's where I have questions. Because I'm like, okay, if we're supposed to believe that this is just like a deformed, incestual baby, essentially, why is it so strong? Why does it have the strength of Superman? I don't understand that. Kind of weird. But, again, movie's so good, I'm over it. So, they're trying to run away from this thing, go up into this, like, tower. And eventually, AJ, like, throws Tess off the freaking thing to what you assume is her death so he can live. So the Yabo Beast jumps after her to, like, save her baby. Heavy, man. Heavy. He goes down there, you think, okay, they're both dead. No. Neither one is dead. The Yabo Beast takes his eyes, because apparently Justin Long just doesn't deserve eyes if he's in a horror movie. Poor dude. The beast is like, you know, obviously beat up. Tess is beat up. But there's this moment where the monster is like caressing Tess's face, and she's like, my baby, my baby. And you're like, oh, well, this thing really isn't the worst thing in that basement. So eventually, Tess does shoot the monster, and even in its last dying moment, the Yabo monster just has this really sweet moment. It's almost like kind of sad. Like, it kind of had me like emotional. I was like, oh my gosh, like, why am I emotional over the Yabo beast having feelings? What is life? And then it ends. Tess survives. I have a lot of questions. Like, if the Yabo Beast isn't the worst thing that's down in that house, was it Richard Brake's character? Or is there something even more evil lurking down there, like maybe their whole incestual family or something? I don't know. And that's okay. I don't want it to be answered. Honestly, this is one of those movies that it's like, this is so fresh and creative. Don't explain it, because it will, I think, kind of kill the movie. You know, oftentimes when you get explanations to why things are the way they are, you're like, it's better when it was a mystery. And then there's the question of like the basement and how like it just keeps going into these tunnels. Did Richard Brake's character like dig all this and create this whole underground system? Or was this like already there? And there's already like an evil entity down there? Because like, that was a lot of tunnels. That was a lot under that house. I have a hard time believing that he did all that, but who really knows? So again, a lot of questions, but this movie is an absolute must-watch, in my opinion. The director and writer, Zach Kreger, I don't know anything about him. I don't know who he is. I've never seen anything he's done, but I really, really hope that this is not the last thing that we see from him, because this was the refreshing horror that we all needed. And I think horror has tried to kind of be a little out of the box and do things a little bit more out of the ordinary. But at the same time, like, I'm not a big fan of the breakout, different modern horrors that we get usually. You know, people freak out about A24, which I respect what A24 does, because it is different and it was refreshing for what horror had become. But it's a little too artsy-fartsy for me. There are a couple that I really like. But the thing about this movie is not only is it refreshing, original, creative, and terrifying, but I also think this is a movie that you don't have to be a horror fan to genuinely enjoy. I mean, I think it is such a insane, wild, and entertaining ride that I think anybody can honestly enjoy this. They may not sleep and they may see a, Yabo monster when they close their eyes at night, but this is an absolute must-watch. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this movie. I just want to take a moment and thank everyone who has been watching and subscribing and commenting. The last couple of movie reviews I've done have had so many new people, and it has been so great to nerd out about all these movies with y'all. Thank you so, so much. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can see more videos from us in the future. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later. And definitely think twice before you rent that Airbnb.